your decision to come to Philly. How did that work out? Like what was the whole game plan there?
Yeah. So when I went to free agency, I probably had about 10 teams that were at 3 years at about the same number. And I'm looking at rosters. I'm looking where like, again, I took a step back in Chicago. I got traded there, barely played again. I was like, yeah, I got to make sure I find a good fit here because I
Yeah.
don't want
Well,
to
you got traded from Montreal there the year you were hot.
Yeah, man. I had
Yeah.
14 goals in the 45 games. Like I was going to score 20 goals that year. Like
yeah,
I was pissed I got traded. I never wanted to leave, but they never made me an offer. They made it worked out for them. They had a great deal. But and then I went to Chicago, barely played. So when I'm looking at teams, I'm looking at the roster. I'm like, hey, I got to find a way. I'm not saying I'm going to play in the first line. Like I just want to find a good fit on the third line. Maybe I get on the second power play, kill some penalties. That's all I'm looking for. And Hexie calls me. He was the first GM that I talked to, and kind of, man, he sold me right away. Like after I talked to Hexie, I always obviously wanted to play in Philly. Being a road player, like looks like a great hockey city. I love the team. I think it's a good roster. I think I can fit. So, and after I talked to Hexie, it was kind of a wash from there. I was like, told my agent, I said, okay, let's push some other teams and see if we can get to 4 years. I think we had 4 or 5 come back at 4 years, but I was like, okay, I'm going to go with Philly because to me, Hexie sold it. I liked it. And I was pumped, man. I was excited.
Yeah. I remember you came there. Obviously you and I hit it off right away. You're always great to the staff, great to me. And you were well liked in the room as well. It was a tough time here then because we were supposed to be rebuilding. I remember the first year, I think Hexie was here. Chief had taken over. You missed Chief, correct?
Yeah.
You missed Chief, yeah, because you were Montreal. But we made the playoffs that year. The next year we didn't have the greatest lineup, but we didn't make the playoffs. So Chief, he kind of got the bad end of that whole thing. I didn't really like that. I don't think a lot of guys did, but it's the business, right? Like he was kind of saying to me, if we don't make playoffs, he's gonna fire me. I can tell you right now. I'm like, no way, man. Like nothing against any of the guys. We just didn't have that lineup.
Yeah,
that
you didn't have enough.
We didn't have enough. And great core, but not just not enough. I don't think. But anyway, Hack comes in, you sign, and we did make the playoffs. I think a couple times while Hack was here in the 4.5 years he was here, but wasn't the best of times in Philly. Like as you were kind of alluding to earlier.
Yeah, it was weird, and I think maybe I could feel it right away when I came in there because I came from Chicago, where I mean, you look at the nucleus that they had, like that was awesome. Like as soon as you walk in that room, spend 20 minutes there, you see why they won. Like that is a team. And I walked into Philly, and it was just kind of I had a weird vibe on the team. I don't know what it was. I wish I could like quoted this. I could like I'm predicting the future, but I was talking to my dad. He's like, how's things going? I was like, man, so we got a weird vibe on this team. I don't know what it is. And I still don't have the answer of what it was, but we had some good teams when I was there, and we just never lived up to it. And if I had to point to one thing that I thought was the issue, I think it's accountability. And Hack didn't hold enough guys accountable. And aside from my bias and me and him didn't have a real great working relationship, there wasn't enough accountability on the guys that were carrying the team to me. And that's where it's got to start. If when I was in Chicago a couple months earlier, we're in the playoffs, Quenneville comes in, he's calling out Kane and Taves. You're going to get a response. And in Philly, it was like we're rotating the bottom guys on the lineup and we're blaming those guys.
Yeah, I know. Right?
On the game at 4 minutes, you can take one out, and
doesn't change anything at the end of the day.
Stretch where I was sitting in the stands for like a month and a half. They brought up like Tyrell Goulbourne at one point from the American League. Like good on him. Like, but it was so weird. You're paying a guy $2.5 million to sit in the stands. You're bringing up a guy in the minors that probably isn't a full-time NHLer. Like it was just so many weird things went on there. And Hexie had some interesting ways of running a team. So they were.
We keep hearing more and more.
I never saw anything like that.
Yeah, like I will say this, and I've said it before because people ask me. From my side of things, he was my boss. Well, he was everyone's boss. So some things I thought I knew him since I was a kid. So I got a little different side of Hexy when it was him and I. Like we had a great relationship. I actually really had a good relationship with Hexy, and I still do.
For sure.
He liked to be hands-on.
Yeah.
Sometimes he would say stuff to me and then I would never do it in front of anyone else, but him and I, like, I would joke with him about it, and he would laugh. I'm like, he would always kid around about, oh, Dino was crazy. He was so like on top. I'm like, Dino? I said, what about you? Oh, fuck that, Deke. That's not me. Like we would kid around about that stuff. But for me, I always tell people, like, he was my boss. He had rules. I thought some of them were a little odd, but he was my boss. So I just did what he said, and I got along fine with it. But I know what you mean from the player side. I know it was, players have said it before when we've had them on, it was just some things they thought were odd and
it was
different.
It was different. Yeah. I got, you know what, I got no ill will towards Hexy too. Like I'm not saying anything about him. I just thought we had there was weird things that like you wouldn't see on any other team. One time I think he got mad at me one time. I thought you were there, where like I gave a stick away to a kid at the practice rink.
Oh,
was like,
it was more than once.
That's a no-no.
It was more than once.
And it was like he's getting mad about it. And it was like, this is the NHL, man. Like we're trying to sell the game. Like we got a little kid there. Like, come on, man. You got mad at me for it. I think me and you talked about it. I thought it was me and you, but
yeah, no. It was. There was one time Weise. So I don't think he understood. So I don't think he understood we had game sticks that stayed with the game equipment.
Yeah.
And then we had the practice sticks. But I will say this about Hexy. He didn't, my budget, if he would say, will it make us better? Do the guys really need it? I'd say, yeah. He goes, go ahead. He was great that way. That was things you guys didn't see, but it was funny when he would get on me about the sticks, because it happened a lot. And one time he happened to be out on his perch, and poor TK's a rookie.
Oh.
And he had, what I would do is say, you played a game with a game stick. It stayed there, but I would leave like 4 on your rack. So the next game, when you cut a new stick, I'd take the last one off, take it to the practice ring. So you had about 10 on your rack.
Oh yeah.
So, you guys were practicing with the same stick. So, they would get beat up, because practice, you're actually using them way more than you do in a game, realistically. And, you're taking extra shots, you're doing all this shit. Anyway, long story short, poor TK's 19 years old. He goes in, he takes his back sticks off, and he gives one to one kid, one to another. Well, by the time he came around to my office to ask me a question, and my phone's ringing, I said, hey, hang on, bud. It's Hex. And I put it on speaker, and he goes, Deke? Because he called me Deke. He goes, you tell that TK? And I'm like, taking the speaker off, because that kid's already, his eyes are like this, right?
He's panicking.
He's saying he just gave 2 sticks away. We can't be just giving. And I said, yep, I got you. I'll let him know. And TK, meanwhile, is standing right in front. He can still hear him. So TK's looking at me. I said, I'll take care of it. Don't worry. And so I'm like, I told Hex later, I said, Hex, those sticks were broken, man. They were on the back of his rack. They're actually on the wall to go to my gray. He's like, wow, fuck, Deke. These guys just throwing, giving stuff. We got charities. And I said, you're right. I understand. And then he was mad at me. And then later, I think it was a game day that night, he came in, and he always came in at the same time. And we'd sit there and shoot the shit for about 10 minutes. I'd make fun of his suit he had on, because he was bad. And he would laugh, and he goes, hey, I didn't mean to get on you today, but your dad was tough on me. I'd go back to Winnipeg, and I would ask for a stick, for my family, and he'd be like, well, all right, but you gotta be like your dad when it comes to these guys and those sticks. But so I know what you mean. It was kind of funny. It was different times, but
it was.
I was happy to have you, and we had a pretty good group. For the most part, we had a good group of guys. We had some fun.
Time. We had a ton of fun. I had a ton of fun. You know what? I probably think I was living in I was living in Cherry Hill. It's probably out of any of the places I lived, that's probably my favorite place I lived. I absolutely loved living there. Like, it was just, the setup there is great. Like, I had outside of hockey, I had an unreal time there. Like, I really, really enjoyed it.